Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I welcome you all to this special edition of Vision 2030 on the scale. This is the first time I present in English, and will be the second time I present with my guest, Dr. Al-Awda. But briefly, I would like to address the issue why I'm presenting in English. The first issue is that we had to migrate and leave our country as patriots because we could not express ourselves in the country, so-called Saudi Arabia. And the second issue is that we have to address Westerners. We have to speak our minds in their own mindsets. That's why we have to start initiating these podcasts in English. They will not be as frequent as the Arabic ones, which will continue, but we still have to speak their mindsets. We have to show them and address our issues in the terms they understand and the terms they are concerned with. So this is why I'm presenting in English. Again, my guest is going to be Dr. Abdullah Al-Auda, Abu Aban. For those who do not speak Arabic, we like to nickname ourselves. So we say Abu, which means the father of uh, so and so, his son or daughter, as he or she wishes. So my guest is going to be Abu Aban or Dr. Abdullah Al-Auda, whom I'm going to put on the stage right now. Dr. Abdullah, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Okay. Again, we are going to be addressing Vision 2030 on the scale in this series, and I will start with an overview of that vision as an introduction with this brief clip.
An ambitious plan to make Saudi Arabia a more prosperous and respected country. The plan was launched on April 25, 2016, by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. Vision 2030 aims to achieve four main objectives: diversify the Saudi economy and reduce its reliance on oil, improve the quality of life for Saudi citizens, enhance Saudi Arabia's international standing, build a more stable and prosperous society. To achieve these goals, Vision 2030 will implement a wide range of reforms across various sectors, including 1. Economy. Vision 2030 will develop non-oil sectors such as tourism, manufacturing, and technology. It will also attract foreign investments and improve infrastructure. 2. Society. Vision 2030 will empower women and promote social participation. It will also improve education, healthcare, and social welfare. 3. Government. Vision 2030 will enhance government efficiency and promote transparency. It will also establish partnerships with the private sector. Vision 2030 is an ambitious plan but one that is achievable. Saudi Arabia has many resources needed for success, including abundant natural resources, a young and educated population, and visionary leadership. Vision 2030 presents an opportunity for Saudi Arabia to realize its aspirations and build a better future for its people.
Hey, Dr. Abdullah, before I start addressing the topics of today's session, I would like to address a personal issue, which is why I put our beloved scholar, your father, Dr. Abdullah Al-Auda, on as an icon today. Firstly, how is his current status? Because he's imprisoned for the past, I guess, like 9 years now, since 2017. Yeah. So, what's the situation? If you can update us, please. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So the situation is, for those who are not following the situation in Saudi Arabia, since Mohammed bin Salman came to power in 2017, he started embarking on this aggressive foreign policy externally, and an aggressive and brutal crackdown internally. And externally, he started with the blockade on Qatar. And then internally, he started with the crackdown, starting with what we call the September crackdown. That actually started with my father on September 10th, 2017. So it's been almost 7 years now. and the crackdown included prominent names, prominent figures like Abdullah al-Maliki, Hassan al-Maliki, Muhammad Musa al-Sharif, Ali Badahdah, Adil Bana'ama, Isam al-Zamil, and across the spectrum, because a lot of people like a lot of Saudi propagandists in the Western media try to build this as like crackdown on the religious establishment. None of these folks are from the religious establishment. Like a lot of them from Islamic background, but they're not the religious establishment. They're not like the senior scholar, the Council of Senior Scholars. Like those folks were not arrested because they go into, for example, say no to, quote unquote social reforms, but rather because they call for basic rights, because these folks may say no to normalization, to things like that, but not to some of the other things that the Saudi government is trying to sell. So he was arrested in September 2017, a few hours after he called for reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Qatar, in which he called for harmonization between the hearts of the two leaders. That was his actual tweet that he was arrested over. And then a year later, exactly, like September 2018, they started the trial that is still pending, by the way, in which they called for the death penalty against him on 37 charges, including corrupting earth, having books that are banned in the kingdom, calling the Saudi monarchy a tyrannical system, calling for the release of political prisoners, and not praying enough for the ruler. تقصير في الدعاء لولي الأمر. So these are like actual charges. I kid you not. They may seem silly, preposterous, absurd, yes, but that's the legal system in Saudi Arabia. So the trial is pending. He's still in solitary confinement 7 years later now. He lost half of his vision, half of his hearing due to neglect and medical negligence. And he hasn't been treated well. And as you know, the situation in Saudi Arabia, they just throw you in a dungeon and then mistreat you, torture you. And this happened to a lot of the people in jail, and we can talk forever about this, but this is just the short overview of the case of my father and what happened.
Is there any communications with him from your family, or like regular visits or anything?
So it had been irregular, meaning like there was once like a regular call, but because of that call that was leaked to the media, like millions of people watched and heard that call, the Saudi government in retaliation stopped my father from calling, prevented him from calling, but later they allowed irregular visits, more and more becoming regular. So it's like a monthly visit in which they see him through a glass door because they wanted to they took advantage during the COVID period by preventing families from hugging their family members in jail, citing COVID restrictions and things like that. But it has nothing to do with COVID. It was just like the Saudi government taking advantage of the COVID situation to prevent people from, hugging their family members, and to make it difficult and to torture them even more. And that's what happened with my father too.
Okay, if I would just elaborate on this issue with respect that in 2012, King Salman at that time urged his son, which is Muhammad bin Salman, to visit Dr. Abdullah al-Auda and to
Salman.
I'm sorry, yeah, Dr. Salman Auda, and have him as his coach, actually. And
Yes.
CNN addressed that in one of their topics at that time. So, and he stated that he was impressed with Dr. Salman's vision about reform, and all of a sudden things flipped over, and we see him jailing him. So, what happened? I mean, why did that issue?
Yeah, an interesting question. Yes, for those who did not follow the story, so just quickly, so it's like my father had this show that is like very popular on NBC. I think it was the most popular TV show even throughout the Arab world, especially like social / religious shows. And the show was called Al-Hayat Kalima, Life is a Word. And in one of the latest episodes, like in 2010, I would say, he addressed the situation in Riyadh and Jeddah and Mecca and elsewhere, where the rain flooded the city, bridges fell down, like whole homes were like basically destructed, and it was a catastrophe that my father commented on this live show, and he blames corruption, and he said corruption is the reason, and he said Mr. Rain, he called it Sayyid Matar, he said Mr. Rain actually exposed corruption to the extent that a lot of people are embarrassed by this poor infrastructure in Riyadh and Jeddah. Like on that show live, the head of Amir Salman, Prince Salman, who was the governor of Riyadh at the time, called my father live on the show, and he said, "Why are you blaming us and the government for the infrastructure? We have been trying to do our best, and you shouldn't be talking about the infrastructure and corruption in Riyadh before you talk to us first and ask us about information and data we can give you about this, and you kind of point a finger to us." So they basically try to be defensive, and they said, "You are a respected man, we respect you, we follow you, but we want you to not blame us or point fingers to us." So just imagine, it's ironic, by the way, that at the time they were angry at my father for exposing corruption, and right now Mohammed bin Salman is claiming that he is fighting corruption. So why were you embarrassed in 2010 when my father, 14 years ago, started talking about corruption in Riyadh? Unless you think that it was like it meant that you are part of the corrupted elite. So anyway, after the show, at the time, it was during King Abdullah, so Salman was not in power yet, but he was afraid that the next show, my father was even be more prepared and talk more about corruption and expose them, and then it will be like really, bad for them. So they called my father after the show. Salman himself, like the current king, called my father. He said, "Sorry, this happened. We listened to your episode. We know, we understand where you're coming from, and we invite you to come to our office at the governorate, and we'll show you the files that we submitted to the finance minister about like infrastructure. We try to build, we try to prevent this, and we're doing our best, and you are a respected man. We want you to understand this, and we want to have the conversation, like direct conversation, instead of going to the media and talking this about this." So my father said, "Yeah, I have nothing to lose with meeting and listening." So they invited him. He went there. It was the first time that my father met Mohammed bin Salman in person, because the king, at the time, the governor of Riyadh, Prince Salman, introduced his son. He said, "This is my son, Muhammad, and he's a young guy, and I want him to learn and get to know you and your knowledge and expertise on the subject, on religion, on society, on politics, and on history, and all of these things. And he said, I suggest to that my son learn from you. So that was like the first time, and then they scheduled a meeting a few times, but the last time was in 2012 when he sat down and came to our house in Riyadh, and sat for hours and hours, like to the degree like one of my, like I don't want to name, but I mean, like some of the family actually thought that he's not going to leave ever, and then I asked my father about that meeting because like very, very long. So my father said it looked like he said he was going to learn from me and listen to me, but he was speaking more than I was. And he was showing off. He was trying to say, oh, this and that. And then he talked about like so many things, including Alexander the Great, which he mentioned like a few times. I think he was obsessed with Alexander the Great, and he wanted to be the Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, like it was like came to power when he was in his 30s. I think that's how he came about this idea. And by the way, Alexander the Great was killed and assassinated by 39, I think. Like right now, Muhammad Salman, I think 38. So so that was like, and by the way, that's why Muhammad Salman is fearing assassination, I guess. He's imitating Alexander the Great, and he thinks that Alexander the Great like controlled the whole world and had all the power when he was in his 30s, and he thinks that he can do that. But one of the things that struck my father, like I asked him, what are the things that really, stuck in your mind from that meeting? So my father mentioned one thing that I really, really think is important to interpret and analyze this guy's behavior. He said that he mentioned Machiavelli, and he said one of the things that he cited for Machiavelli, I think wrongly he cited or rightly, I don't know. He said polities and states are ruled by fear, not love. And he said the ends justify the means. When you have an end, you can just do anything. Like if the ends means having control over the Saudi society and the Saudi institutions, you can kill for it. You can go after your critics. You can assassinate. You can.
He stated that. He stated that in terms.
He stated the ends justify the means, but I'm explaining that he can wage war and assassinate. So that's basically. I think I went on and on one question, so I'll just stop here.
Unfortunate, very unfortunate. Okay, I'll move over to the vision itself. And Bin Salman and his father launched this vision in 2016 as a roadmap to reform our country based on its pivotal role in the Islamic world, strong investment capabilities, and strategic geographical position. How do you, Dr. Abdullah, see the outcome after 8 years now from launching this vision? Are we achieving anything actually that we can measure?
Yeah, well, look, there is an Arabic proverb, البعرة تدل على البعير. I don't know how to translate, and I don't want to translate that into English. But they said I would say the footstep of the camel will tell about the camel. I'm trying to modify the proverb to be appropriate for your views. So the thing is, in 2016, when Muhammad bin Salman announced the Vision 2030, he also announced something that he called the transformation plan, which was supposed to be the step toward 2030, and it was the plan 2020. He literally, on national TV, when he was talking to Turki Dakhil, I remember the interview, famous interview, he said in that interview in 2016, when he was deputy crown prince, He said, by 2020, we'll be independent from oil. We will be able to live without being dependent on oil. And he said, our problem is addiction to oil. And I cannot agree more. Yeah, addiction to oil. But he said, he set the goal that in 2020, by 2020, we will be able to live without the need for oil to function as a state in Saudi Arabia. Look at us now in 2024, 4 years after the plan, 4 years after the goal. Do you think now we are independent from oil? We have never been more dependent on oil than today. Look at us now. Just because the oil revenue is decreasing, given the oil prices is going down, they have done a lot of cuts within ministries. Even their own projects for 2030, they cut it down. Look at the reports of the Bloomberg, of the Wall Street Journal, and I cited these two newspapers for a reason, because these two newspapers were really, really close, and they have access to the royal court, and they talk to them all the time. I haven't talked like I'm not citing the New York Times or the Washington Post or like more liberal, outlets, but rather like the two outlets that consider to be close and have association and partnership with the royal court and the Saudi government. So, and look at the Jad'an. Jad'an actually did an interesting podcast with the Saqrat podcast in which he talked about like the vision.
You're talking about the Minister of Finance.
Yes. In that podcast, he actually literally said that with the money that they have right now, it's impossible to reach the goal that they set for 2030. And he said, we need to do one of two things. One, redo the goals, meaning re-envision what we're going to have. So basically, if you said you're going to like drive for 3 hours, you're going to redo the whole map by saying, okay, we're going to drive for 3 minutes instead, and so that's the first choice. The second choice is they basically have to invent new and huge ways to get liquidity in order to function. So I think what they went with was the former, because that's what we have seen so far, is like scaling back all these projects, like the project of the line, and it's just very famous now failure. Like the line they said going to be 170 kilometers, I guess, or 100 and something. Right now they're saying it's like going to be 1 kilo. It's not even 10%. It's like less than 1%. It's like 0.5% of the plan. This is not scaling back. Like this is not like cutting out like 10% of the plan. It's cutting out like 99% of the plan. So basically, what plan left for us to even analyze? So that's one thing. So I talked about like the 2020 indicator, and it's clear that because they haven't reached the 2020 goals, and not even close. Look at us now, 2024. There's no way that they're gonna do anything by 2030. No way. It's impossible. That's not gonna happen. So that's one. Two, as I said, is their own statements, their own assessment of the plans and what's going to happen in 2030. Three, and I think I have said this since the very beginning of the plan. In 2016, even I said this. So part of 2030 is, and McKinsey was like really big on this, is that they say for 2030 to function and to reach the goal, they have to be transparent and to have what they call the vibrant society, right? So look at us now. We have never been far from transparency. We have never been far from this vibrant society. What kind of vibrant society is this? We are jailing people over like silly tweets that they have said like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. We have going after like Al-Muzaini for their own show that is actually giving them, benefits and ideas, and promoting them on Netflix, one of the biggest networks, TV, like and shows in the world. They're going after their own people, let alone the people who have been more critical, like us. So that's the third indicator, I would say. The fourth is basically the numbers of the investment locally and internationally, and it's actually telling when you see the numbers of, for example, local tourists and local investments. For example, for the local tourists, it's been like scandalous to see that what they have done in order to prove that they have increased the number of tourists, they just change the definition of what tourist is in order to say, oh, we have a big number of tourists. Not change the method, not change of how to attract more people and more numbers. No, it's the same, but they changed them. They called, for example, the pilgrims, those who go for Hajj and Umrah, religious tourists. Therefore, they include them in the tourist numbers. That's all they do. Like,
okay, we're talking about, as you mentioned, transparency. Let me put this slide where it shows, this is taken from Transparency International, and it's comparing 2012 all the way to 2023, if I can see correctly, 24 actually. Anyway, and it's showing a progressive increase in the transparency, and actually is saying that at the lower thing, let me take this banner out, is saying that we have +1 since 2022. So we are progressing or increasing in transparency. So I do not want to question Transparency International, but I'm saying that how can he manage to play around with these things, even though the international figures will think that he's progressing, but actually the public inside the country and we outside see that it's just declining. How is this happening?
Well, in Saudi Arabia, as you know, he's in the position of the king. He controls the numbers. He can basically issue any number, and for the international, for some of the international organizations, that will be enough for them, because it's easy. Once you have money, you have power, it's easy to be convinced of things. To be convincing of things. So the thing is, like, they can issue any number. So I just gave you an example of the tourism idea. It's like, instead of attracting more tourists, they just redefine what tourism is and what do you call tourist, and then you present this as a huge achievement. When you release these numbers, they will say, oh, okay, this is a good measure. It's a transparent measure toward this, and it's like, yes, there are things. For example, the consensus in like the number of the population. I remember when there was an issue around like how many Saudis are in Saudi Arabia, the population, like the accurate population number in Saudi Arabia, and then they said more recently it's like 18 million instead of like 20 or 25 or even 30 that they have said in the past. So I think you get different ministries sometimes in contradicting things. Even after the 18 numbers, you get statements from MBS himself talking about like the 30 million Saudis doing this and doing that. So I don't know, maybe they present some parts in like a small scale or small office headed one ministry saying something, and then they present this as like, oh, you look at issuing numbers and releasing the real database or whatever. And then in the bigger scale for the whole government and for propaganda, for the propaganda machine, they just talk about totally different things.
Okay, let's move over to the, as we know that Vision 2030 is based around the three main pillars: a vibrant society, a thriving economy, and an ambitious nation. So I'll be moving over to the first pillar of these, and I'll address that with this short clip.
Empowering Saudi families to own suitable homes and improving housing conditions. Increasing supply and ownership rate. Achievements. From 47% to 60% home ownership. Immediate entitlement. 46k units for families in need. 1.4m documented lease contracts. Empowering the underprivileged. Focused efforts to provide housing for vulnerable segments of society and boost their satisfaction. Public-private partnerships. Successful collaborations with developers and banks. Offering subsidized loans to citizens. Agile platform. Advancements in the rental sector. Protecting rights of lessors, lessees, and brokers. Future goals. Targeting 70% home ownership by 2030, supporting economic stability and sustainability. Developmental housing program, bridging supply gaps, partnering with non-profit sector for community associations. Etmam Center, digital platform supporting real estate developers' journey, encouraging growth and innovation, facilitating immediate entitlement to real estate, increasing supply and demand movement. Sakani platform, general authority for real estate. Regulatory entity to enhance the real estate sector's efficiency and effectiveness. Improving regulations. Streamlining legislative activities to foster a conducive housing environment. Family-focused housing. Prioritizing family needs to ensure comfortable living and thriving communities. Financing solutions. Enabling access to financing for aspiring homeowners, stimulating housing demand. Increasing satisfaction. Aiming for 80% citizen satisfaction with the program services. Long-term vision. Contributing to Vision 2030. Enhancing citizens' quality of life and economic prosperity. Saudi home ownership, real estate investment, attracting private sector investments to ensure sector stability and growth. A success story of increased ownership rates and housing opportunities. Housing for all, empowering communities, supporting non-profit sector partnerships for residential developments, working towards inclusive housing solutions for all segments of society. Sustainable housing sector, ensuring resilience and growth amid changing economic conditions.
Okay, with this topic, where all citizens can thrive, this is what they stated in the vision statements, can thrive and pursue their passions. How do you see, Abu Aban, the housing endeavors that the government established to cultivate this vibrant, so-called vibrant society? How do you see the application of what is stated in the vision in terms of housing?
Well, look, so I want to just quickly address 2 points. One is what have been said in the clip, and many of these things are the goal that they said they're going to achieve and want to achieve. So I don't want to like people misled that these things have been achieved or already they are already happening. It is what the Saudi government is claiming to be achieving. So that's on one hand. On the other, to assess what have been done and what are the things that they were really achieving. Look at the housing minister when he had done interview with Mansour Argheba, and they talked about the housing problem in Saudi Arabia, and he promised that they're going to be a short period of time in which they are going to be building a lot of houses, and he said the majority of people, and he gave like even numbers that I don't remember, to be able to own like a large segment of the Saudi population, including young folks, going to be able to own for themselves and for the future. None of that has been achieved, period. None, not even a small percentage, nothing. And it has been like a scandal, and even like Mansour started to avoid that discussion until he was arrested. And like it's an irony that instead of addressing the situation, they arrested Mansour Argebi himself. It just tells you that it's like, one, about the vibrant society, and two, about this housing problem. And the third point that I want to make here is the huge problem of demolitions. We have been documenting the issue of demolitions in Neom, in Qasim, in Mecca, but especially in Jeddah, the Hadad Jeddah. And we have talked to so many people on the ground. There have been so many interviews that some of them actually were published by NPR and some other outlets, and even Washington Post, about this thing. And we even briefed the UN rapporteur on housing and like about these problems, and they have been really concerned. It's like, I just want to give a quick overview about this to show you, first, the problems that we face in Saudi Arabia, and two, I think it is symbolic, but the issue of housing. So in Jeddah, 63 neighborhoods, exactly a whole third of the city have been completely demolished. Not partly, completely demolished. Two, I don't know if you know, but like the according to the Saudi statistics and the municipality in Jeddah, the Jeddah population is about 4.7 million people. 1.4 have been completely displaced. We're talking about exact third of the city.
And within about 2.5 months, unfortunately.
Yeah, within a short period of time. And we have talked to the people, and we tried to get the sense of what happened and why and how and what's the situation. And we studied even the law of expropriation in Saudi Arabia, اللي هو قانون مصادرة الأملاك, right? The property expropriation. And we noticed there are 6 main violations, or 5 main violations. One, the notice has been really, really short. Some of the folks that their houses have been demolished were given a notice of 24 hours or like 48 hours, like 2 days or 1 day. Some of them were just told to leave the hell out of their houses right away. Two, the way that they have been even given notices is like so weird. Just right on their wall is like ikhla or whatever, you know. It's not like a proper even. This is against even the Saudi law. We're not talking about international law. We're talking about Saudi law. 3, there is no way of appeal. It's like none of them have been able to talk to the government in a proper way or channels to tell them about their grievances and what happened and all these violations. So none. 4, according to the Saudi law, you have to prove to each citizen that you're taking their private property for that you have exhausted all other methods for any public property or property already owned by the government. For example, if you're going to build an opera in Jeddah, you have to prove to them that you have exhausted all other ways of building this in other places that the government already owned, or in public places. Why you chose this specific place that already owned by private folks and people living in that place. And the 5th thing is a big issue, which is the issue of compensation. So you have, according to the Saudi law, according to the international law, you have to have what they call fair compensation and process of fair compensation. Meaning, if you're gonna, like, you have to value the house in a way that is fair to their owners. You can't just like kick them out of their houses and then tell them, okay, we're going to value it at some point, and then you just value it like at the sixth value of the house, or like less than like half of the houses. So the sixth main violation is alternative housing, meaning when you kick them out of their house, even if you intend to give them fair compensation, you have to provide alternative housing, temporary alternative housing in the meanwhile, so you can value the house and do the work and do the demolition, etc. So none of these things have been respected. None of these things have been applied. We talked to a lot of people, no compensation. The Saudi government at one point, they stated they issued $1 billion for compensation. And we talked to the people, only like 20 to 25 people around that number said they're already like being compensated, but other people have not been. There are so many people who just went out of the house or out of the town, some of them out of the country, especially those who are not Saudis. This is just an example of this lack of housing. And by the way, this is in the name of Vision 2030 or reforming or rezoning or doing projects that are going to help the city. And I don't know how demolishing the houses of 1.4 million people in Jeddah is going to help achieve the vision or to help the population of Jeddah.
Could you come again, Dr. Abdullah?
Yeah, I was saying, I don't know how the demolition of 1.4 million people in Jeddah is going to help achieve Vision 2030.
Unfortunately, none. I'm just reading the comments. Sorry for this glimpse, but unfortunately, even the comments from the so-called bugs just ignore the feelings of human that you displace from his or her own property, and just keep saying, no, we got rid of drugs, places, and whatever. It's just silly, unfortunately.
Yeah, let me quickly address that, by the way.
Yeah, please.
So it's funny. So what the Saudi government is saying is that they're getting rid of drug dealers and and brothels and things like that, right? So one, you're not going after brothels and drug dealers, you're going after houses. So that's one. Two, what you are saying is that you basically moving these drug dealers and brothels from these places that are poor, have nothing to pay, to the richer, part of the city where they can pay these things and even do them in a more, subtle way that is harder for you to catch. So that's two. Three, a lot of times they say, there are a lot of problems and issues, and it's like the zoning issue. Like they had zoned these, like a lot of these neighborhoods just a few decades ago, and it was like done by the government. They have property titles, and everything needed, and writs for the owners to be appropriate owners, and they have been stripped from all these things in the name of we have criminals in the neighborhood. Well,
actually, Abu Aban, because I'm a Jeddah citizen, compared to where I live, which is modernized Jeddah, if we can term it, and the places that they demolished and brought down, those places like Karantina and the middle of the city had proper sewer system. We did not have up in the north or in the east where I used to live. So they, as you said, they're properly termed. They have better pavements. They have a sewer system all the way to the sea, to the seaport, where we did not have this. Yet they were demolished and we were left. They were brought down, and as you said, they spread these drug dealers around the city where nobody can see them over.
And that's funny, like,
Yeah.
so talking about drug dealers, so they left the drug dealers forever. They only remembered the drug dealers when they wanted to demolish the city. And I've never seen in my life like going after drug dealers by demolishing houses of people. Like, let's assume all these 1.4 million people are drug dealers. Let's assume that for just sake of the argument. It's silly, but let's assume that, right? Like 1.4. Well, you have a huge number of drug dealers in Saudi Arabia. That tells that you are a failing state. Like, not Colombia, not any part of the world that reached the peak of drug dealers. It's just insane. It's like it's a failing argument. Like, if you reach that number for criminals and you left them all these years, and then you didn't arrest any drug dealer at all or any criminal. You just demolished their houses. That's weird. You only went after their houses. That's weird. Why you didn't go after the drug dealers and the criminals and arrest them? You're just going after their houses. It's just like, it tells you it's a lie, and it's a misinformation spread by the government to just basically take ownership of these houses and demolish them in order to basically rally the population of Jeddah against these neighborhoods and against the people who lived in these neighborhoods, and instead of addressing the real issue in hand.
Unfortunately. Okay, let's move over to the next topic. And this is before the last one, actually, in this episode, which is going to be talking about a thriving, so-called a thriving economy. And I will address it with this brief clip.
The development program aims to develop a diverse and active financial sector, supporting national economic growth and diversifying income sources. The program, launched in 2017, achieved success: Saudi stock market inclusion in global indices, successful Aramco IPO, advancements in financial technology. Program continues to support private sector, develop an advanced capital market, increase financing for small and medium-sized enterprises, focus on developing a sustainable and thriving insurance sector in the kingdom, increasing insurance premiums as a percentage of non-oil GDP, targeting an increase in non-cash transactions from 36% in 2019 to 70% by 2025, driving digital infrastructure development, commitment to relevant international standards, including requirements of the International Settlements Bank and International Organization of Securities Commissions. Strategic objectives: enabling financial institutions to support private sector growth, developing an advanced financial market, empowering financial planning. Target: increase banking sector's total assets to SAR 3.5 trillion, supporting economic growth and financing opportunities. Increase small and medium-sized enterprises' financing share in banks to 11%, promoting their growth and contribution to the economy. Raise the total insurance premiums as a percentage of non-oil GDP to 2.4%, promoting a sustainable and thriving insurance industry. Boost digital infrastructure development by increasing non-cash transactions to 70%, supporting a digital financial ecosystem. Program aims to develop an advanced capital market, offering diverse investment opportunities and contributing to economic growth. Empower individuals with financial planning tools, including retirement planning and savings, fostering financial well-being for citizens. Focus on enabling financial institutions to support private sector growth, providing necessary financing and investment opportunities. Program supports financial technology advancements, aiding new and emerging companies in the sector to drive innovation and efficiency. Commitment to comprehensive financial stability in the financial services sector, adhering to relevant international standards and regulations.
We are talking about where everyone has, as the government says, or bin Salman in particular, has the opportunity to succeed. Statistics show that Aramco, for example, shares did drop and they continue to drop. Businesses are collapsing at early stages, despite feasibility studies, whatever, and that the Ministry of Finance withdraws budget data, which happened in Reuters actually addressed that, and I quote here: Saudi Arabia Investment Ministry removed fiscal data from a monthly bulletin published on Monday on its website that showed the kingdom would record a budget surplus in 2023 of about 16 millions, end of quote. And after that, they could not even justify why they played around with these figures or why they removed that figure to begin with. So what is happening here? I mean, talking about a thriving economy, at the same time, all the indices show that actually we're failing. Could you address this, please?
Yeah, so quickly, first of all these goals are the new liberal economy mindset setting up these goals to begin with. And I think we in the Middle East and in the Arab world and in Saudi Arabia in particular, we should have our own, especially like we have rich like resources. We have geographical bless in this region. We have this what they called strategic depth in relationship to other countries and cultural, like sharing the culture, the language, that a lot of countries in the West had to go through a lot of revolutions and do a lot of coalitions in order to reach just the goal of sharing a language or specific values. We in the Arab world and the Muslim world already have that. So it is sad to see that we ignore all of that in order to achieve a superficial goal that is not even set by our own people. And again, the new liberal economy mindset that says, oh, if you provide more taxes, you're going to have more quote unquote thrive in economy. And for them, defining the thrive in economy is through enriching the state, not the people, not protecting the people in their health and providing healthcare, providing education, providing basic rights, but rather stripping them from all these things in order to enrich the state and make the state even richer and make the institution even more powerful than they already are. They are, so that's to begin with. Second, even in the new liberal economy mindset, they are failing big time. I mean, لا سووا لا شو يقول لك لا ضيعوا مشيتهم ولا مشوا مشية الحمامة, whatever the proverb is. It's like, oh, they haven't been preserving their own way of thinking, and they haven't even mastered the new way of doing this. So they failed in both fronts, at both fronts.
It's more of a twilight zone that everything is vague and nobody knows what is happening.
Yeah, so that's exactly the situation. And like, see the economy right now in Saudi Arabia. I was just talking today to one person about this, and they are right there, and they're talking about like how the middle class is shrinking in Saudi Arabia. We used to be proud of the fact that we have one of the biggest middle class in the Arab world because of the blessing of God subhanahu wa ta'ala, the oil and everything that we have nothing to do with. But right now, despite the oil, despite the natural sources that we have, despite everything, it's like we're failing big time. It's like the middle class is shrinking to the degree that you find people who used to be like above even middle class complaining about the basic living conditions, like paying bills and talking about like fees to pay for ministries and paperwork like fees and paying the tickets. And by the way, the tickets, like you may find this silly like in other countries, but in Saudi Arabia, paying like the tickets, like traffic tickets, is a big issue. It's becoming really big issue. Who would imagine this is going to be a big issue for the Saudi citizen who used to like not even care about these silly things. And that's just like an indication of what the economy is, and the middle class is getting really smaller and smaller by the day. So I just want to stop here because I'm trying to be conscious of your time.
Thank you very much. We have about 5 minutes left, actually, and let's address the final issue, which we are talking about the ambitious nation, and we are going to handle it from the healthcare perspective with this introduction clip.
And its impact on Saudi Arabia's healthcare services, addressing health challenges and increasing quality and efficiency. The program's role in tackling COVID-19. Key achievements during the National Transformation Program: overcoming health risks and challenges, improving quality and efficiency, digitizing the health sector, and enhancing access through applications like Sayhati and Nawid, restructuring into an effective and integrated health system, adopting value-based care, transparency, and improving satisfaction of beneficiaries, enhancing public health initiatives, disease prevention, and equitable geographical distribution of health services, focus on digital solutions and expanding e-health services for better accessibility and quality healthcare, facilitating access to healthcare and improving the quality and efficiency of health services. Notable achievements: increased digitization and investments in healthcare infrastructure, investment in road infrastructure, reducing road accident deaths, and promoting safety. Introduction to the world's largest virtual hospital launched in 2022, offering specialized services, training healthcare volunteers, supporting hospital staff, and promoting healthy habits in communities. The impact of improved health services and preventive care on life expectancy, harmonizing and coordinating health sector entities and government agencies to align with national goals, raising awareness of traffic safety and enabling integrated healthcare systems through meaningful procurement, aligning the program with strategic national goals during the transformation journey, the journey of healthcare empowerment, envisioning a healthier future for Saudi Arabia.
Okay, Abu Aban, the topic addresses that it's committed, or the ambitious nation committed to efficiency and accountability at all levels. This is how they term it in the vision statements. The healthcare system did improve. I can state this. I did see some improvement after the vision was launched. But at the same time, we can see a massive number of increase in drug users and narcotics boosted around the country, unfortunately. So it's supposed to be a collective issue. It's not just you're taking care of some of the healthcare institutes. At the same time, you're just spreading drugs around the country with and actually punishing those who try to quarantine it or report it, like what happened with some of the official, actually, when they say that we are facing a boost in the amount of drugs entered into the country. So how do you see this statements, ambitious nation, so forth?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the remark by Muhammad Summan when he said the sky is the limit, and he says that we are the people of Twig, which is a famous mountain in Najd that is known to be like standing still. So I think the ambition. Let's be clear on this. The ambition of the Saudi people is really great. It's not the problem. The problem is what the Saudi government is aspiring to do, which is to crush their own people, to have more power at the expense of basic rights, basic liberties, to not let the people breathe, basically. And I think there is a huge gap between the ambition of the Saudi people and the ambition of not the 10% on the top, or even 1% on the top, one person, which is Mohammed bin Salman, who's doing a lot of damage, not just to the Saudi people needs and conditions, but to the institutions of Saudi Arabia. And look at the relationship and foreign policy with everyone. Look at the ministries inside. Look at the internal discussions in Saudi Arabia. Look at every segment of the Saudi society. And I want to end with this. A lot of time, many people approach us and ask us, don't you think that Mohammed bin Salman is popular? We read that in the news, especially in the Western news, that Mohammed bin Salman is popular. And it's funny because, one, when you talk about somebody being popular, meaning the people like him or his own people like him, you would know that through what? Either elections. We don't have that. Actually, they especially prevented elections, so they don't, provide enough information. And by the way, tell me about transparency here. Two, I know people who tried to do some statistics and ask people about their feelings about projects, not even MBS, and they arrested them and put them in jail because they don't want the people to know how the people of Saudi Arabia feel about things. Three, it's even more indicative to see different, like various segments of the Saudi society and how they feel about the government, to know about whether the Saudi government is popular and whether Mohammed bin Salman is popular. So look at for example, the conservatives. I would say the vast majority of them are not happy. Look at the liberals. I would say also the majority of them are not happy. Look at the feminists. He attacked them and arrested the prominent names of them. Look at the Shia. He also went after them, executed so many of them, and demolished their homes and cities. Look at the Sunni. Look at the tribesmen. Look at the non-tribesmen. Look at the Badawi, the Hadari, the Sunni, the Shia, the liberal, the Islamists, like all these folks. I don't know who left, and then look at the cities. He demolished so many people, displaced so many millions, went after tribes, went after religious figures, went after liberals, after elites, after economists, after poets, after tribesmen, after prominent names across the board, and even after his own family and former ministers. I think this should tell you about whether the Saudi government is popular or not. I think I would say it is vulnerable. And I think that's why you hear the fear from the Saudi government that Mohammed bin Salman is fearing assassination. And this has been told by the people who met him and knew him well, like Bernard Hakel, who said that Mohammed bin Salman has people who taste the food for him and double cook and cover for him and be around him all the time because he's afraid of assassination attempts. I don't think the person who is very, very popular and everybody likes him will fear assassination attempts from the people close to him. He'll be confident.
It is unfortunate, unfortunately. Okay, Dr. Abdullah, before I close this episode, as I said at the beginning, this is going to be a limited edition. And I thank you very much for sharing with me or coming on stage with me, because the future English sessions will not be addressing our local concerns within our country. They will be tying them with the international and cross-continental concerns. I mean, the impact of this vision on the worldwide economy, on human rights, on the economy, the economy of the whole world. Actually, what is happening right now in the region is actually reflecting. This is what I'm promising the followers, inshallah ta'ala, or the audience, that I'm going to be staging later on, is that, and inshallah Dr. Abdullah and others will be also sharing with me these concerns, including actually Westerners that I'm planning to bring on stage, is that we want actually to see the world, to see how this vision, how this man who's taken taken our country actually on a steep hill, unfortunately, is going to be a threat, not only to the people within the country, is also to the region and even across continent, unfortunately. So I would like you to address this issue before we close this podcast, please.
Well, yeah, I just want to thank you for this. I think it's important, and to keep the work. I really thank you for hosting me and to have this, and looking forward to see you again and have another episode, inshallah.
Inshallah. Okay, please stay on the stage, and I'll just close the broadcast shortly. Okay, I would like to thank about 1,315 live audience following us right now. I thank Dr. Abdullah for having and honoring me actually to attend this episode, and inshallah we'll see you in future coming episodes in English. It's not going to be as frequent as the Arabic, and actually I have to, I'm sorry for that, but I had to bypass the comments and questions because of the time limits that we have set. We are already 7 minutes above. So we'll see you inshallah in the next episode, and wishing you all a blessed time and a blessed Friday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.